Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. This one is again about Jordan and Tammy Peterson. Tammy's been doing some more interviews recently about where she's at in her faith, so I just kind of wanted to do a revisit on this one and maybe about their situation. So I've got some clips in here. One is from the ever wonderful Sam Adams, who had a conversation that was just posted yesterday or today. And so that's the first clip we're going to start with. And in this clip, I think Sam gives a good account of what is going on with Jordan currently, and then we'll get into some clips of Jordan and Tammy both speaking.
In some ways, right?
Sure.
He doesn't feel comfortable saying, he doesn't feel comfortable saying he's a Christian. He
Right.
doesn't feel comfortable saying, I believe Jesus rose bodily from the dead. He doesn't go to church, etc. Right? And he's very aware of that, but he gets really, really close sometimes. And there is still this just, I don't know, conversion or transformation thing that happens from the inside that seems, beyond all of those things. That's like the deeper organizing principle behind all of those four cylinders.
Yeah.
That still matters, right? And that's where, I could understand, bringing in a Calvinist perspective into that sort of transformation and how that happens, that it's not volitional, it's not something you can choose, it's not something that you can make happen to yourself. It's a gift that gets given.
Yeah. So I actually wrote my master's thesis on thinking through that, because I love, dude. Maybe I'm hardest on my own people, and I think that's probably okay. But
That's fine, yeah.
yeah. So I think a lot of Calvinists don't get this right, and they think they want to emphasize God's sovereignty, which, amen, that's great. And a lot of times they want to emphasize it in a context where God's sovereignty is poo-pooed or seen as a huge problem. So okay, that's great, but don't overemphasize God's sovereignty to the point where you're not saying that this person made a decision for Christ. Like they did. I chose to follow Christ. Well, you're an Arminian then. No, like God is sovereign. He's the author of the story, and he's a good author. So he gave me reasons to do that, and he didn't go outside of my mind. He didn't, he's not a manipulator. He's not an evil scientist who puts a chip in my brain and makes it switch on. He designed my whole life. He wrote the whole story of my life and led me and guided me to this point of rational affirmation of certain propositions, but also of this personal experience of knowing and loving him. And so, divine illumination is a little bit different than divine implantation of, bam, you have this. No, even with Paul, there's this blinding light, but he's still, who are you? And he says, I'm Jesus, the one you're persecuting. He didn't just put that in there and make him do that. He didn't change him like that. He prepared the way. He gave him divine illumination, and he went through his cognitive faculties in order to do so.
The first thing to act as if God exists, let's say it this way, to act as if God exists, the first thing that it asks of you is not a moral action. The first thing that it asks of you is attention. That's why to act as if God exists is, first of all, to worship. Like and I know people are going to hear this.
Well, then I have a terrible problem with that too at the moment, because I'm in so much pain. Like one of the things that one of these theologians discussed the idea of, and sorry, I want to let you get back to your point, but he discussed the idea of the yoke of Christ being light and that there was joy in it. And there's a paradox there, obviously, because it's also a take up your cross and follow me sort of thing. But the fact that I've been living in constant pain makes the idea of joy seem cruel, I would say. And I have no idea how to reconcile myself to that. I mean, I've reconciled myself to that by staying alive, despite it. Although by staying alive despite it, but there's very little worship. And it doesn't mean I'm not appreciative of what I have. I'm not only am I appreciative of what I have, I do everything I can to remind myself of it all the time. And so does my wife. I mean, she's changed quite a bit as a consequence of her struggle with cancer, has become much more overtly religious, I would say. And, we say grace before our meal in the evening, and it's a very serious enterprise. And it always centers around gratitude, for the ridiculous volume of blessings that have been showered down upon us at a volume that's really quite incomprehensible. But despite that, despite that, I'm struggling with this because I don't know how to reconcile myself to the fact of constant pain.
Yeah.
By the time I had been in the hospital for 5 weeks, I was awake again because now I was getting nutrition. That's when I started to pray. Right?
That's when you started? I thought you said that you started with Queenie. Queenie came to give you some...
That's when when I was in the hospital for the last time, this 5 weeks. See, my electrolytes went out of balance and I went into emergency because my potassium was out of whack, and then you're going to have a heart attack. And that was going to be the end of me. I had lost so many body fluids that my electrolytes were going out of whack. And that's when you have a heart attack and die. So I was nearly dead, but not quite when I got into the hospital. And then they pumped me full of fluids until my electrolytes balanced. And then they gave me a TPN diet until I had enough nutrients for my brain to turn back on. And when that happened, I'd been in the hospital for 3 or 4 days. That's when Queenie came to the hospital. And she showed up.
And who is Queenie to you?
So she came up to visit. Queenie stopped by our house a couple of years ago, maybe even 3 or 4 years ago. She was a fan of my husband's, and she wanted some. She's a Catholic. She lives on U of T campus. She is like a dorm don for Catholic girls at U of T. But she also does other things. She's very interested in family. She's very interested in schooling and family and things that have gone. I think she contacted us when our premier was Kathleen Wynne. I think that's when she first came to our house because she was concerned about the curriculum and the things that were happening in schools. And she was, I don't know, she was just this friendly little Asian woman. And she came to the hospital and she brought me a rosary and she said, "Do you want to pray?" I said, "Sure. Why not? Let's pray." So I had my bag and my pole, and we'd go down in the Toronto General. There's an atrium it's 4 stories high and it's full of plants and sunshine, a little bit like being outside. So I could go down there.
You must love that.
I loved that. That was like life, to me. That was good. So I'd go down there and I would sit with her for 2 hours and cry and pray.
Okay, so what gave you this idea to do this on a regular basis? Did you already know that talk therapy was curative in a psychological or physical sense?
No. She just showed up and asked me if I wanted to do it, and I just said yes. So I think she knew because, there's a in Catholicism, there are prayer, organized prayer sessions that people can set up, or you can belong to a part of the church that's all about prayer. So I belong to a part of the church that's all about prayer, and it's about just everyday people praying for life. That's what they do, is they pray. And so that's what I do, is I pray. And
so you went down with her to the Toronto General atrium
On the
Every
fourth
day you
floor.
talked for $2. I mean, sorry. Every day you
$2.
talked not for $2,
Yeah.
for 2 hours.
She didn't charge anything. Nope, she just came, gave me a rosary, and we prayed. And then I would go back upstairs and play cards with my family and visit with them. And I just stayed there for 5 weeks praying. And then just before I went to Pennsylvania to a doctor who was hopefully going to heal this hole I had in my abdomen, she asked if I wanted a priest to come over and bless me, and I said sure. And so a priest that works with
Father Eric.
Father Eric, he works at U of T. He came over to our apartment and he blessed me, and he gave me a novena for the ill, which are 9 days of prayer for someone who's deathly ill, and told me to meditate on gratitude. And off I went to University of Pennsylvania with plenty of my family along with me. And they were supposed to be the best in the world, and I'm sure they are. They did an MRI guided. They poked little needles in me with dye and poppy seed oil.
Mm-hmm.
And they said now and then the poppy seed oil will irritate the system, and if there's a leak somewhere, it will be irritated enough that the body will put down whatever kind of tissue is
healing agent?
necessary.
I see.
To scar it up and close it.
Uh-huh.
And so they looked for the leak, couldn't find it.
So sorry, the poppy seed oil is for imaging purposes?
The poppy seed oil is to carry the dye.
I see. Okay.
And then on the MRI, they can see plumes come out if there's a leak.
Ah, cool.
Yeah, cool. Very cool. Very cool. Very cool.
So they tried to look for it. They couldn't find it.
They couldn't find it.
So that means
they,
the poppy seed oil worked instantly?
No, it didn't work instantly. No, they couldn't find it. I was still leaking. It was Thursday. By Saturday, it had kind of slowed down, the leaking. But we'd had the leaking slow down already once before, and then found out it was just a mechanical failure of the bag apparatus that I had hooked to me. So right. So then, it was false positive. So no. So this time when it slowed down, we were going, so is this better, or is this just because things aren't properly cared for here? Or like, so what's going on? And they had told me that the only way to tell if the lymph had healed would be to eat some fat. So at that point I was eating food again, but no fat. A no fat diet like I had done before.
Because they're worried that would irritate the lymph?
Yeah, because the lymph works with fat. So if you don't put any fat down, the lymph isn't working. And you want to limit what the lymph is doing if you have a leak.
But you also mentioned that the lymph serves as a garbage collector in your body. So no matter what, it would be working, but at a much lesser rate?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Much lesser rate.
Okay.
Yeah. So on Saturday, I thought, well, I might as well eat some fat and see if this has worked or not. Because on Monday, they're going to open me up and do some more major surgery to see what they can find. So I might as well find out if it worked before of that. And so I had, I don't know, I think I had eggs. Not just the white, but the yolk. Because there's fat in the yolk. And as far as I could tell, there was no milky looking fluid in my bag. It still looked like urine. It was just yellow. And so the next morning I was at breakfast, and an intern and a nurse came, and they said, well, I think you better eat some fat, because we have to find out if the leak is still, like, what's going on there. And so I said, well, I already ate some fat last night. They said, oh, okay, well, like, show me what's in the bag. And I pulled it up and it was clear. And they said, this isn't what we expected. We're very surprised. your leak seems to have closed up and you're better. You can go home. So then they followed me for about a month, told me just to walk, not do anything else, not lift anything or anything. And they called me often. And then after a month, they said, well, you're discharged. You're better. So I prayed the novena for 5 days, and then I was better.
Why weren't you allowed to?
My aunts died. My aunts and uncles died young. And so I thought, oh, I guess I'm one of them. That then I'm going to die young like them. And I can do that. I'd always been a very independent person, making my own decisions and getting on with life. And this was just another decision that I was making. That's how it felt to me, that this was another decision that I was making and that I was tough and I could do it. So that was my plan. And then I went home from the hospital and I went to tell my children. And when I told them the prognosis, they looked so hurt that something inside me completely changed. And I realized, oh no, I'm not looking at this properly. This isn't my decision. Because I always wondered about people who had gone through many cancer treatments, many times going through chemotherapy and radiation and the things that people go through to stay alive. Why would they do that? I've always kind of wondered why they would do that. And I had thought, no, I'm not doing that. If I'm going to die, then I'm going to die, and that's that. But then I went home and I told my kids, and I thought, they look so hurt. And my husband too, but it was really looking at my kids. They look so hurt that it's not my decision. So I'm going to do whatever I can to stay alive. I realized that being alive is the focus is about service. It's about what you can do for others. And that's the Christian story.
That's like an unselfish concern for the welfare of people who aren't you.
Yes, that's Christ's story. It's his suffering and his sacrifice. It's his sacrifice that we live by and aspire to.
Okay, so if you notice where Jordan is in his talk with Jonathan Pajot, what he's trying to convey is that his wife is no longer the same person, that something about her has changed. And Tammy is describing it in this other interview that I clipped up about what exactly happened through her illness and where she's at now. And I have to say that Tammy has the exact correct idea on what the central message of Christianity is, and that is that your life is a gift to be used in service to, both to God and to others. And so that's how she is accepting of this gift that's been given to her not dying from her illness. And she's having an influence on Jordan, but he's in a separate spot right now where he finds it harder to be joyful and have the same outlook and same lease that she does on life, which it's sad to see him in that spot, but then again, you can see the influence that she is having on him. And I don't know if I said this in the last video, but I'm going to say it now. It makes no difference to me that it was a woman of Catholic faith that brought Tammy to where she's at. And that Tammy prays the rosary and she does all these things. Like, yeah, it would be nice if she was part of Some people would say it would be nice if she was part of their team, but I just really don't care. I'm glad that she's in the position that she's in, and that she can be a positive influence on Jordan, because just my personal opinion, God spared both of their lives because he wasn't done with them yet. Jordan single-handedly did more to get people thinking about going to church and being more open and receptive to Christianity than I've seen since Billy Graham. And so that means a lot to people, and that, in my opinion, means that God's not done with him yet. And you know, he's using Tammy right now. She's the conduit that God is working through, the vessel, if you will, to reach Jordan. And I do think that one day you will probably see both of them sitting in a Catholic church together and being content with that. And you know, that's my hope, that they get there. But that's all I have for this one, guys. Thanks.